I spent Christmas morning staring at my phone, watching my daughter post pictures of a feast I wasn't invited to. The table was overflowing with food, laughter frozen in photographs, faces I recognized surrounding a woman I barely knew anymore. My daughter. My own flesh and blood. And I was sitting in my apartment with a microwave dinner and a glass of cheap wine. They didn't forget about me. They chose to leave me out. So I decided it was time everyone knew the truth. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Now let me tell you exactly what happened to me and why this Christmas changed everything. My name is Margaret, though most people call me Maggie. I'm 62 years old, and until 3 days ago, I thought I had raised a daughter who loved me. Her name is Jessica, and she's 34 now. She's married to a man named Ryan who works in finance and makes more money in a month than I made in a year during my working days. They have 2 children, Emma who is 12 and Lucas who is 9. Those grandchildren were supposed to be the light of my life. I say supposed to be because apparently, I'm not allowed to be part of their lives anymore. It started on December 22nd. I was in my small 1-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon, putting up the last of my Christmas decorations. I had already wrapped presents for Emma and Lucas, spending money I really shouldn't have spent because my Social Security check doesn't stretch very far these days. But that's what grandmothers do, isn't it? We sacrifice. We give. We love without expecting anything in return except maybe a hug and a smile, and the knowledge that we matter to someone. I had bought Emma a beautiful journal set because she loves to write stories, and I got Lucas a science kit because he's always asking questions about how things work. I wrapped them carefully in red and gold paper, the kind that costs extra but looks festive and special. I even bought ribbon and made bows by hand because I wanted everything to be perfect. These gifts sat on my small dining table, waiting to be delivered on Christmas Day when Jessica and her family came over for our annual celebration. Except they weren't coming. I just didn't know it yet. My phone rang while I was hanging the last strand of garland over my kitchen window. It was a cheap strand from the dollar store, but I had fluffed it up and added some pine cones I collected from the park to make it look nicer. I was actually humming a Christmas carol when I picked up the phone and saw Jessica's name on the screen. "Hello, sweetie," I said, genuinely happy to hear from her. "I was just thinking about you. Are you getting excited for Christmas?" There was a pause on the other end. Not the comfortable pause of someone gathering their thoughts, but the heavy pause of someone preparing to deliver bad news. Yeah, about Christmas. We need to talk." My stomach dropped. Those 4 words. We need to talk. Nothing good ever follows those words. What's wrong? Is everything okay with the kids? The kids are fine. Everyone's fine. It's just that we've made some different plans this year. I stopped fussing with the garland and sat down at my small kitchen table, my hand unconsciously reaching for the wrapped presents, as if touching them could somehow change what I was about to hear. Different plans? What do you mean? You're still coming over on Christmas Day, right? I've already got the ham ordered from the butcher. I picked it up yesterday. It's in my fridge right now. Another pause. This one even longer. The thing is, Mom, Ryan's mother really wants us to spend Christmas at her house this year. She's getting older, you know, and she's been talking about how this might be her last Christmas. I felt something cold spread through my chest. Ryan's mother, Patricia, was 68 years old and in perfect health. She played tennis twice a week and had just gotten back from a cruise to the Caribbean. But I didn't say that. Instead, I tried to keep my voice steady. "Well, that's fine. Why don't you all come here for Christmas Eve then? We can do our celebration a day early. I don't mind adjusting. We're actually doing Christmas Eve at Patricia's too. She's having this big thing with Ryan's whole family. His brother is flying in from Boston with his family, and his sister is coming from San Diego. It's going to be this whole extended family gathering." I sat there holding the phone, trying to process what she was telling me, trying to understand how I had gone from hosting Christmas dinner to not being included at all. "So when will I see you? When will I see the kids? They're expecting to open their presents from me." Jessica's voice got quieter. "We're pretty booked up this week, Mom. With Ryan's family in town, and all the activities Patricia has planned. Maybe we can get together after New Year's?" Like the first weekend in January or something. After New Year's. She was asking me to wait 2 weeks to see my grandchildren. 2 weeks past Christmas to give them their gifts. 2 weeks of sitting alone while they celebrated with Patricia's family. Jessica, I said slowly, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. I've already bought the ham. I've wrapped the presents. I've been planning this for weeks. We always spend Christmas together. Always. For your entire life, we've spent Christmas together. I know, Mom, but things change. Ryan and I talked about it, and we think it's important for the kids to spend time with Patricia's side of the family too. They barely see them during the year. They barely see me during the year either, I wanted to say. But I didn't. Because I had been trained my entire life not to make waves, not to be difficult, not to burden my daughter with my feelings. Can't I come to Patricia's house? I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. How desperate. I promise I won't get in the way. I'll bring a side dish or a dessert or whatever you need. The pause this time was excruciating. It's just that Patricia's house isn't that big, Mom. And with Ryan's brother's family and his sister's family, there are already going to be like 20 people there. It's going to be pretty crowded. 20 people. 20 people were invited to Christmas, but there was no room for me. I see, I said, though I didn't see at all. What I saw was that I didn't matter enough to be included. What I saw was that Patricia's house had room for 20 people, but not 21. What I saw was my daughter choosing her husband's family over her own mother. I'm sorry, Mom. I know this isn't what you were expecting. But we'll definitely see you in January, okay? I promise. Sure, I said. January. That sounds fine. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetie. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen surrounded by my dollar store decorations and my carefully wrapped presents and my 5-pound ham sitting in the refrigerator. I sat there for probably 20 minutes, not moving, not crying, just staring at nothing. Then I got up and called the butcher to see if I could return the ham. He was kind about it, told me he'd give me store credit, but I could hear the pity in his voice when I explained that my plans had changed. I walked the 6 blocks to his shop in the cold December air and handed over the ham, took my store credit slip, and walked back home. That was 3 days ago. Today is Christmas morning, and I'm sitting on my worn couch in my small apartment, and my phone keeps buzzing with notifications. At first, I thought maybe Jessica had changed her mind. Maybe she realized how cruel it was to exclude me. Maybe she was calling to say they were coming over after all. Even if just for an hour. But it wasn't Jessica calling. It was Facebook notifications. Lots of them. I picked up my phone and opened the app, and that's when I saw them. The photos. Jessica had posted an entire album titled Christmas Morning Magic. There were pictures of Emma and Lucas opening presents in their pajamas, mountains of gifts piled around them, their faces bright with joy. There were pictures of the Christmas tree in what I assumed was Patricia's living room, massive and perfectly decorated with matching ornaments and twinkling lights. There were pictures of Ryan and Jessica looking happy and relaxed, holding coffee mugs that probably cost more than my entire monthly grocery budget. And then there were the pictures of the feast. The dining room table stretched long and elegant, covered with a cream-colored tablecloth and set with china that looked like it came from some fancy department store. The food was everywhere. A golden turkey that had to be at least 20 pounds. Ham glazed to perfection. Mashed potatoes in a crystal serving bowl. Green beans that looked professionally prepared. Rolls that were probably homemade. Pies lined up on the sideboard like soldiers. Everything looked perfect and abundant and festive. The table was surrounded by people. I recognized Ryan's brother, his sister, their spouses, their children. I saw Patricia sitting at the head of the table looking regal and satisfied. I saw Ryan's father, who I'd met exactly twice in the 10 years Jessica had been married. And there, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world, was my daughter. The caption under the album read, "Blessed beyond measure to spend this magical Christmas with family. So grateful for these moments and these people. Merry Christmas to all." I stared at that caption for a long time. Blessed beyond measure. Grateful for these people. Family. I wasn't family anymore, apparently. I scrolled through the comments. There were dozens of them already, even though the photos had only been posted an hour ago. Beautiful family. One person wrote, "What a feast." Someone else commented, You're all so blessed. Another added. Then I saw a comment from someone I recognized. Carol, who had been my neighbor when Jessica was growing up. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Carol, who had watched Jessica for me when I had to work double shifts at the diner. Carol, who knew me and knew my family. Where's Maggie? Carol had written. I thought she always spent Christmas with you? I watched as 3 dots appeared, indicating that Jessica was typing a response. My heart started beating faster. What would she say? Would she tell the truth? The response appeared. Mom wasn't feeling well this year. We miss her but wanted to let her rest. I stared at that comment until the words blurred together. Mom wasn't feeling well. A lie. A complete and total lie. I wasn't sick. I hadn't been given the option to rest. I had been excluded, and now Jessica was lying about it to save face. I looked around my apartment. At the decorations I had put up for a celebration that would never happen. At the presents still sitting on my table, wrapped and ready for grandchildren who apparently weren't coming. At the empty space where a Christmas tree should have been. But I hadn't bought one this year because money was tight, and I figured I'd enjoy Jessica's tree when I went to her house. Except I wasn't going to her house. I wasn't going anywhere. I got up and walked to my small kitchen. I opened the freezer and pulled out a Salisbury steak TV dinner. The kind that costs $2 and tastes like cardboard but fills your stomach. I put it in the microwave and watched it rotate while the timer counted down. 3 minutes. That's all it took to prepare my Christmas dinner. 3 minutes. When it was done, I carried it back to the couch along with a glass of wine from a bottle I'd bought on sale last week. I sat down and peeled back the plastic film, watching the steam rise from the brown gravy and the mystery meat underneath. This was my Christmas feast. I took a bite. It was exactly as bad as I expected. But I kept eating because what else was I going to do? I couldn't return a TV dinner. I couldn't get store credit for my loneliness. My phone buzzed again. More comments on Jessica's photos. More people telling her how blessed she was, how beautiful her family was, how perfect everything looked. I scrolled through them, torturing myself, reading each one like they were tiny knives. Then I saw another comment from Carol. I hope Maggie feels better soon. Tell her I said Merry Christmas. And Jessica's response. Will do. Thanks, Carol. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not broke, because broken implies something sudden and violent. No, this was more like something that had been bending and bending for years finally giving way. A quiet surrender of the part of me that had always tried to keep the peace, to not make trouble, to accept whatever scraps of affection were thrown my way. I set down my TV dinner and picked up my phone. I opened Facebook and started typing. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas from my apartment where I'm spending the day alone. Not because I'm sick as my daughter told people, but because I wasn't invited to spend Christmas with my family. I wasn't invited to her husband's mother's house where they're all celebrating together. There were 20 people at that table, but not room for 21. Not room for me. My hands were shaking as I typed, but I didn't stop. I spent money I don't have buying presents for my grandchildren that they won't receive today, because I'm not allowed to see them. I bought a ham I had to return because the Christmas dinner I planned won't happen. I put up decorations in my small apartment for a celebration I'm having by myself with a microwave meal and cheap wine. I paused, reading what I had written. It sounded bitter. It sounded hurt. It sounded like the truth. I kept typing. For those of you wondering where I am in all those beautiful Christmas photos my daughter posted, now you know. I'm here. Alone. Because apparently, I don't matter enough to be included in my own family's celebrations. Because my daughter chose her husband's family over her own mother, and then lied about it to make herself look better. My finger hovered over the post button. Once I pressed it, there would be no taking it back. Everyone would know. Jessica would be furious. Ryan would probably be angry. Patricia would think I was causing drama. But right then, sitting on my couch with my half-eaten TV dinner, and my cheap wine and my broken heart, I didn't care what any of them thought. I pressed post. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the notifications started coming in. Fast. One after another. Comments. reactions, shares. My phone started buzzing so constantly I had to set it down on the coffee table just to watch it vibrate. I picked it up and started reading the comments. The first one was from Carol. "Oh Maggie, I'm so sorry. That's terrible. I had no idea Jessica would do something like that." Then another from someone named Rita who I recognized as a woman I used to work with at the diner. "This breaks my heart. You deserve so much better than this." Another from Tom, who had been Jessica's high school math teacher. "I can't believe Jessica would treat you this way. You were always such a devoted mother." The comments kept coming. People expressing shock, offering support, some sharing their own stories of family betrayal during the holidays. Within 10 minutes, my post had 50 reactions and 30 comments. Within 20 minutes, it had been shared 5 times. I sat there watching the numbers climb, feeling strange mix of vindication and fear. I had told the truth, but now what? What happened next? My phone rang. Not a notification this time, but an actual call. I looked at the screen and saw Jessica's name. My stomach clenched. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Then it went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a text message appeared. "Mom, what are you doing? Why would you post that?" I stared at the message, feeling the anger that had been simmering since December 22nd start to boil over. Why would I post that? Why would she exclude me from Christmas and then lie about it? I typed back, "I posted the truth. You lied to people about why I wasn't there. You told Carol I was sick." The 3 dots appeared immediately, indicating she was typing. "I was trying to protect you. I didn't want people feeling sorry for you." I read that message twice, feeling the audacity of it sink in. She didn't want people feeling sorry for me, so she lied to make herself look better. To make it seem like she was the caring daughter who let her sick mother rest instead of the daughter who excluded her mother from Christmas. I typed, "You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then a longer message came through. "Mom, please take down the post. You're embarrassing the whole family. Ryan's family is seeing this. Patricia is seeing this. Everyone is asking questions, and I don't know what to tell them." I read that message and felt something cold settle into my chest. The whole family. I was embarrassing the whole family. Not Jessica, who had excluded me. Not Ryan, who had apparently agreed with the decision. Not Patricia, who had a house big enough for 20 people, but not 21. No, I was the embarrassment. I was the problem. I started typing a response, then deleted it. Started again, deleted again. Finally, I just wrote no. That was it. Just no. Because I was done explaining myself. Done justifying my hurt. Done making things easier for people who made things harder for me. Jessica called again. I let it ring. She called a 3rd time. I turned my phone on silent and set it face down on the coffee table. I got up and walked to my window. It was starting to snow outside, those big fat flakes that make everything look clean and peaceful and magical. Children were playing in the street below, bundling up in their new winter coats and gloves, probably gifts from that morning. I watched a family walk by, parents holding hands with a small child between them, all of them laughing about something. I thought about all the Christmases I had given Jessica when she was little and her father left us, walking out 2 weeks before Christmas when she was only 6 years old. I worked 3 jobs that winter to make sure she still had presents under the tree. I remember wrapping them at midnight after my last shift at the diner, my hands shaking from exhaustion, but determined that she would wake up to a magical Christmas morning despite everything. I thought about the Christmas when she was 12 and wanted a specific doll that was impossible to find. I called 30 stores, drove to 3 different cities, and finally found one at a shop 2 hours away. I drove through a snowstorm to get it because I wanted to see her face light up when she opened it. I thought about the Christmas when she was 16 and going through that phase where she thought she was too cool for family traditions. She wanted to spend Christmas Eve with her boyfriend instead of with me. I let her go, even though it broke my heart to spend that evening alone, because I wanted her to be happy. I thought about the Christmas when she was 22 and brought Ryan home for the first time. I cooked for 3 days, cleaning my small apartment until it sparkled, buying new dish towels and hand soap, and anything else I could think of to make a good impression. I wanted him to see that my daughter came from a good home, even if it wasn't a wealthy one. I thought about every Christmas since Emma and Lucas were born. How I always bought them too many presents even though I couldn't afford it. How I always volunteered to babysit on Christmas Eve so Jessica and Ryan could go to adult parties. How I always told Jessica to spend Christmas morning at her own house with her own family. That I was happy to come over later in the day for dinner. That I didn't need to be there for the main event. And this was how it ended. With me being excluded entirely, and then lied about to save face. I picked up my phone and looked at the notifications. My post had been shared 15 times now. The comments were over 100. People were tagging Jessica, asking if this was true. Some of her friends were defending her, saying there must be some misunderstanding. Others were expressing shock and disappointment. I saw a comment from someone named Jennifer who identified herself as Patricia's neighbor. I was at that Christmas dinner. There was plenty of room. The table could have easily fit one more person. This is heartbreaking. Another comment from someone named David who said he was Ryan's coworker. Ryan talks about his mother-in-law all the time. Said she basically raised Jessica alone and did an amazing job. I can't believe he'd be part of excluding her from Christmas. The comments kept coming, and with each one, I felt a strange sense of validation. These were strangers, people who didn't know me, and yet they could see what Jessica apparently couldn't see. That what she had done was wrong. That I didn't deserve to be treated this way. My phone lit up with another call from Jessica. Then a text from Ryan. Maggie, this is Ryan. Please call Jessica back. You're really upsetting her, and this is getting out of hand. I stared at that message for a long time. I was upsetting her. I was getting out of hand. Not their actions. Not their choices. Mine. I set the phone back down and returned to my window. The snow was falling harder now, covering everything in white. It was beautiful. It was Christmas Day, and it was beautiful, and I was alone. But for the first time in 3 days, I didn't feel quite as powerless as I had felt when Jessica first called to uninvite me. I had told the truth. I had spoken up. I had refused to protect people who wouldn't protect me. And that felt like something. Maybe not much, but something. I walked back to the couch and picked up my wine glass. I raised it toward the window, toward the snow, toward whatever came next. Merry Christmas to me, I said out loud to my empty apartment. Merry Christmas to me. My phone buzzed again. More notifications. More comments. More shares. The truth was spreading, and there was no way to stop it now. Jessica and Ryan and Patricia would have to face the questions. They would have to explain themselves. They would have to deal with the consequences of their choices. I had spent my entire adult life putting other people first. My daughter's happiness. My daughter's comfort. My daughter's reputation. I had swallowed my hurt and my disappointment and my loneliness because that's what good mothers do, right? We sacrifice. We understand. We don't make waves. But sitting there on Christmas Day with my microwave dinner and my cheap wine and my phone full of notifications, I realized something important. I realized that there's a difference between being a good mother and being a doormat. There's a difference between sacrifice and erasure. There's a difference between understanding and accepting disrespect. Jessica had made a choice. She had chosen Ryan's family over me. She had chosen Patricia's comfort over my feelings. She had chosen to lie rather than face the awkward truth. Those were her choices, and she would have to live with them. But I had made a choice too. I had chosen to tell the truth. I had chosen to stop protecting people who hurt me. I had chosen myself, maybe for the first time in my entire life. And sitting there in my small apartment with my dollar store decorations, and my returned ham, and my wrapped presents that no one would open, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. I felt proud of myself. Not happy, not exactly, but proud. Proud that I had finally found my voice. Proud that I had refused to be silent. Proud that I had demanded to be treated with the dignity I deserved. My phone kept buzzing. The notifications kept coming. The truth kept spreading. And I sat there and let it happen, because the truth was all I had left, and I wasn't going to apologize for it anymore. I woke up on December 26th to 247 notifications on my phone. My post had been shared 38 times. The comments had grown to over 300. I lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. Then I picked up my phone and started reading. The first thing I noticed was that Jessica had posted her own response. It had gone up around midnight, long after I had finally turned off my phone and gone to bed. Her post was long and carefully worded, the kind of statement someone writes when they're trying to do damage control. I want to address some confusion about yesterday's events. My mother has been going through a difficult time lately, and we thought it would be best for her to have a quiet Christmas at home. We offered multiple times to include her in our plans, but she insisted she wanted to be alone. We respect her decision, though we're saddened that she's chosen to share private family matters publicly. We love her very much and hope we can resolve this privately moving forward. I read it 3 times, feeling my anger build with each word. Going through a difficult time. Like I was unstable. Like I was the problem. We offered multiple times to include her. A complete fabrication. She insisted she wanted to be alone. An outright lie. But what made me angriest was the last part. We're saddened that she's chosen to share private family matters publicly. She made it sound like I was airing dirty laundry for attention. Not that I was telling the truth after being excluded and lied about. The comments on her post were mixed. Some people believed her version of events. Oh, that makes more sense. I was worried there was some big family drama. Sending love to you and your mom. Hope you can work this out. Others were more skeptical. This doesn't match what your mom posted. Someone isn't telling the truth here. I've known Maggie for years and she's never been one to cause drama. What really happened? Then I saw a comment that made my blood run cold. It was from Patricia, Ryan's mother. Jessica, sweetheart, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Family matters should stay private. Some people just can't handle not being the center of attention during the holidays. You focus on your beautiful children and your wonderful husband. That's what matters. I stared at that comment, feeling the full weight of what Patricia thought of me. Some people just can't handle not being the center of attention. As if wanting to spend Christmas with my family made me narcissistic. As if being hurt by exclusion made me difficult. I got out of bed and made coffee, my hands shaking slightly as I filled the pot with water. While it brewed, I scrolled through more comments on my original post. Most of them were supportive, but there were a few that clearly came from Jessica and Ryan's friends. There are always 2 sides to every story. Maybe you should ask yourself why you weren't invited. Family dynamics are complicated. Without knowing the full context, it's hard to judge. I'm sure Jessica had her reasons. Those comments stung more than I wanted to admit. They implied that I must have done something to deserve being excluded. That I must be the problem. That Jessica's version of events must be the truth. Because why would a daughter exclude her mother unless the mother deserved it? My phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw my sister's name. Linda. She lived in Seattle, about 3 hours north of Portland. We talked every week or so, but she didn't use social media much. Someone must have called her about what was happening. Maggie, I just got off the phone with Carol. What the hell is going on? I poured myself a cup of coffee and settled onto my couch, preparing to tell the whole story again. By the time I finished, Linda was so angry I could practically feel it through the phone. That little brat. After everything you did for her. After raising her by yourself when that worthless father of hers walked out. After working yourself to the bone to give her a good life. This is how she repays you. Linda had never particularly liked Jessica's choices. She thought Ryan was pretentious and Patricia was insufferable. She'd been saying for years that Jessica was changing into someone we didn't recognize. Someone who cared more about appearances and status than about genuine connection. I tried to keep the peace, I said. I always tried to not make things difficult for her. Well, maybe that's the problem, Maggie. Maybe you made it too easy for her to take you for granted. When there are no consequences for treating someone badly, why would anyone change their behavior? I didn't have an answer for that. Linda told me she was coming down to Portland that weekend. I tried to tell her not to bother, but she insisted. Someone needs to be in your corner, she said. And I'm not letting you sit alone in that apartment while Jessica plays happy families with people who clearly don't value you. After I hung up with Linda, I made myself some toast and sat down to read more of the fallout online. My post had taken on a life of its own. People were sharing it in groups about family estrangement. Someone had screenshotted it and posted it on Twitter with the caption, "This is why the holidays are so hard for so many people." The screenshot had gotten thousands of likes and retweets. Then I started receiving private messages. Dozens of them. People I hadn't talked to in years were reaching out. "Maggie, I saw your post. I went through something similar with my son. Just wanted to let you know you're not alone. I'm so sorry this happened to you. You were always such a kind person. You deserve better. If you need anything, please reach out. Even just someone to talk to. I'm here." The messages kept coming. Some were from old co-workers from the diner, where I'd worked for 20 years before I retired. Some were from other parents I'd known when Jessica was in school. Some were from people I barely remembered, but who remembered me. One message in particular caught my attention. It was from a woman named Helen who I'd worked with at the diner years ago. We'd been friendly but not particularly close. "Maggie, I don't know if you remember me, but I wanted to reach out. What you're going through sounds incredibly painful, and I'm so sorry. I also wanted to tell you about something that might interest you. There's a community center here in Portland that's looking for volunteers for their senior programs. They especially need people to help with their weekly lunch program for isolated seniors. I've been volunteering there for 2 years, and it's been such a meaningful experience. If you're interested, I'd be happy to introduce you to the coordinator. Sometimes when our families let us down, we need to build community elsewhere. Just a thought. Sending you strength." I read that message several times. A community center. Helping isolated seniors. It was ironic, really. I was now one of those isolated seniors. 3 days ago, I had thought I had a family, a place I belonged, people who needed me. Now I was alone with nothing but a Facebook post full of strangers' sympathy. But maybe that was the point. Maybe I needed to find purpose somewhere else. Somewhere where I was actually wanted. I was about to respond to Helen's message when my phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Margaret Sullivan?" "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Amanda Chun. I'm a reporter with the Portland Tribune. I came across your Facebook post about being excluded from Christmas, and I'm working on a piece about family estrangement during the holidays. Would you be willing to talk to me about your experience?" My heart started pounding. A reporter. A newspaper. This was getting bigger than I had ever imagined. "I don't know," I said slowly. "I'm not trying to become some kind of story. I just wanted people to know the truth." "I understand," Amanda said. Her voice was kind, not pushy. "But the truth is, stories like yours happen to thousands of people every holiday season. People get excluded, marginalized, pushed aside by their families, and they suffer in silence because they're ashamed or scared of causing drama. Your willingness to speak up could help a lot of people feel less alone." I thought about that. About all the private messages I'd been receiving from people sharing their own stories of exclusion and estrangement. About how reading their messages had made me feel less alone. "What would the article look like?" I asked. "It would be a human interest piece," Amanda explained. "I'd interview you about what happened and how it's affected you. I'd also talk to experts about family estrangement and why it's becoming more common. I'd reach out to your daughter for comment, of course, to get her side of the story. But the focus would be on the broader issue, not just your specific situation. If you talk to Jessica, she'll just lie again," I said. "She's already lying on Facebook." "That's why it's important to have your voice in the article too," Amanda said. "To tell your side. To be on record." I sat there for a moment, thinking. Part of me wanted to say no. To keep this contained to Facebook, to my small circle of friends and acquaintances. To not make it any bigger than it already was. But another part of me, the part that had been growing stronger since I hit that post button yesterday, wanted to say yes. Wanted to refuse to be silenced. Wanted to make sure that my truth was heard. Not just Jessica's carefully crafted version of events. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." We arranged to meet the next day at a coffee shop near my apartment. After I hung up, I sat there feeling a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. What was I doing? Was I taking this too far? Would this make things with Jessica even worse? Then I thought about Christmas Day. About sitting alone with my microwave dinner, while my daughter posted pictures of her perfect feast. About the lie she told Carol. About the ham I had to return. About the presents still sitting on my table, wrapped for grandchildren I wasn't allowed to see. No. I wasn't taking this too far. I was taking it exactly as far as it needed to go. My phone buzzed with another call. Jessica again. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text message appeared. Mom, we need to talk. This has gone on long enough. Can you please call me back? I stared at that message for a long time. This has gone on long enough. Like I was the one dragging it out. Like I was the one who had created this situation. I typed back, you lied about me on Facebook. You told people I insisted on being alone when you know that's not true. Why would I talk to you when you're not even willing to tell the truth? The response came quickly. I was trying to smooth things over. I was trying to make this less awkward for everyone. I wrote back, you were trying to make yourself look good. There's a difference. Another message, Mom, please. People are calling Ryan's parents. Patricia is upset. Ryan's brother is asking questions. This is affecting our whole family. I read that message and felt something harden in my chest. Our whole family. The family that didn't include me. The family I had been excluded from. I typed, that's not my problem. You made choices. Now you're dealing with the consequences. I could see the 3 dots indicating she was typing. They appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, a message came through that was longer than the others. Fine. You want to know the truth? The truth is that Patricia doesn't like you. She thinks you're too needy, too demanding, too quick to make everything about yourself. She said she didn't want you at her Christmas dinner, because you always find a way to make yourself the center of attention. Ryan agreed with her. He said every time you're around, you dominate the conversation and make everything about your struggles and your sacrifices. They said it would be easier for everyone if you just weren't there. I agreed because I wanted to have one holiday where I didn't have to manage your feelings and Patricia's feelings, and try to keep everyone happy. I wanted to have one day where I could just relax and enjoy myself without worrying about whether you were feeling included or appreciated, or whatever else you need constant validation about. So yes, we excluded you on purpose. And yes, I lied about it because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. But since you've decided to blow this up into some huge public drama, there's the truth. Happy now? I stared at that message for so long that my vision started to blur. I read it once, twice, 3 times. Each word felt like a separate wound. Too needy. Too demanding. Make everything about yourself. Dominate the conversation. Manage your feelings. Constant validation. This was what my daughter really thought of me. This was how she saw me. Not as a mother who had sacrificed everything for her. Not as a grandmother who loved her children. Not as a person with feelings and dignity who deserved basic respect. No. To Jessica, I was a burden. An inconvenience. Someone whose feelings had to be managed. Someone who took up too much space and required too much attention, and made life difficult just by existing. I realized I was crying. Not quiet tears, but the kind of crying that shakes your whole body. The kind that comes from somewhere so deep you didn't even know it existed. I cried for the daughter I thought I had raised. The daughter who apparently didn't exist, or maybe never had existed. Maybe I had been fooling myself for years, seeing what I wanted to see instead of what was really there. When I finally stopped crying, I looked at my phone again. Jessica had sent 2 more messages. Are you there? Mom, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said all that. I'm just stressed and upset, and I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I didn't respond. I couldn't. What was there to say? How do you respond when your own child tells you that you're too much, that you take up too much space, that you require too much management? Instead, I took a screenshot of that long message. The one where Jessica told the real truth. And I posted it. I posted it on Facebook with a simple caption. This is what my daughter really thinks of me. This is why I was excluded from Christmas. Not because I was sick. Not because I wanted to be alone. Because I'm too needy and too demanding and make everything about myself. Because managing my feelings is too exhausting for her. I just wanted everyone to know the truth. I hit post before I could change my mind. The response was immediate and explosive. Within 5 minutes, There were 50 comments. Within 10 minutes, 100. Within 20 minutes, my post had been shared 20 times. The comments were overwhelmingly on my side. Oh my God. I can't believe she said that to you. This is emotional abuse. Jessica should be ashamed of herself. You sacrificed everything for her, and this is how she talks to you? Unbelievable. Every parent makes their children feel like they have to manage their feelings sometimes. That's not unique to you. She's just making excuses. What kind of daughter talks to her mother this way? But there were other comments too. Comments that said things I didn't want to hear. I mean, there's probably some truth to what Jessica is saying. Nobody writes a message like that unless there's real frustration behind it. Without knowing the full dynamic, it's hard to say who's right or wrong here. Family relationships are complicated. Posting your daughter's private message feels like a violation. This should have stayed between you two. Those comments hurt almost as much as Jessica's message had. They implied that maybe Jessica was right. Maybe I was too needy. Maybe I did make everything about myself. Maybe I was the problem. My phone started ringing. Jessica. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. Then Ryan called. Then a number I didn't recognize, which I assumed was Patricia. I turned my phone off completely and sat in my apartment in silence. For a long time, I just sat there, not thinking, not feeling, just existing in the empty space of my living room. The Christmas decorations suddenly looked pathetic. The wrapped presents looked like evidence of my delusion. The whole apartment felt like a monument to my failure as a mother. Had I been too needy? I thought back over the years, trying to see myself through Jessica's eyes. Had I dominated conversations? I liked to talk, that was true. I liked to share stories and memories. Was that dominating? Or was that just being a person who existed in the world? Had I made everything about my struggles and sacrifices? I had worked hard to give Jessica a good life. Was it wrong to want her to know that? Was it wrong to want some acknowledgement of what I had done for her? Had I required too much validation? I had wanted to be included in family events. I had wanted to see my grandchildren. I had wanted to feel valued and appreciated. Did that make me needy? I didn't know anymore. Maybe Jessica was right. Maybe I had been blind to my own flaws. Maybe I had been so focused on what I had given that I hadn't noticed what I had taken. Or maybe Jessica was just cruel. Maybe she was a person who could look at her own mother and see nothing but inconvenience and obligation. Maybe she was someone who could exclude and lie and then blame the victim for being hurt about it. I didn't know which version was true. Maybe both were. Maybe I was needy and she was cruel. Maybe I had been too demanding and she had been too dismissive. Maybe we were both right and both wrong, and there was no clean answer to any of this. What I did know was that something had broken between us that couldn't be fixed. Some words, once spoken, can't be taken back. Some truths, once revealed, change everything. I had posted her message for the world to see, and she would never forgive me for that. Just like I would never forgive her for saying those things in the first place. We were done. Maybe not officially. Maybe we would go through the motions of a relationship for appearance's sake. But the real relationship, the one between a mother and daughter who actually loved and respected each other, that was over. I turned my phone back on a few hours later and found 63 missed calls, 42 text messages, 379 Facebook notifications. I ignored all of it and opened my email instead. There was a message from Helen, the woman who had told me about the community center. Maggie, I saw your latest post. I'm so sorry. What your daughter said to you was cruel and unfair. I want you to know that you are not too needy or too demanding. You are a person with legitimate needs and feelings, and wanting to be included in your family's life is completely reasonable. I'm still happy to introduce you to the community center if you're interested. Sometimes we need to build our families from scratch. You deserve people in your life who value you. Let me know if you'd like to meet for coffee this week. No pressure, just an offer. I read that message 3 times, feeling something loosen in my chest. Here was a person I barely knew, offering me more kindness and understanding than my own daughter had. Here was someone seeing me as a whole person with value, not as a burden to be managed. I wrote back, Helen, thank you. Yes, I'd love to meet for coffee. And thank you for saying those things. I really needed to hear them today. Then I opened my text messages and found one from Linda. Maggie, I'm coming down tomorrow instead of waiting for the weekend. I can't let you deal with this alone. I'll be there by noon. Don't try to talk me out of it. I wrote back, okay. Thank you. Then I scrolled through the rest of the messages until I found the ones from Jessica. There were 17 of them, getting progressively more desperate and angry. Mom, please answer your phone. I can't believe you posted that. Do you have any idea what you've done? Everyone is calling me. Everyone thinks I'm a terrible person. Ryan's parents are furious. They're saying I need to cut off contact with you. Fine. Don't answer. But you need to know that this is the last straw. I can't have you in my life if you're going to weaponize everything I say and use it against me publicly. You've made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Don't contact me again. Don't contact Emma or Lucas. You're not welcome in our lives anymore. I'm blocking your number. I'm blocking you on Facebook. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a mother anymore. I read that last message several times. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a mother anymore. She had written the words that I had been too afraid to think. She had ended it. She had cut me off. She had made the choice that I hadn't quite been able to make, even after everything. I should have felt devastated. I should have felt destroyed. But instead, I felt something else. Something lighter. Relief. It was over. The pretending was over. The hoping was over. The trying to make things work with someone who saw me as a burden was over. Jessica had set me free, even if she didn't realize it. I wouldn't have to manage her feelings anymore. I wouldn't have to walk on eggshells around Patricia. I wouldn't have to accept scraps of attention and pretend they were enough. I wouldn't have to make myself smaller to fit into a family that didn't want me. I was free. The thought terrified me and exhilarated me in equal measure. What did freedom mean when you were 62 years old with a fixed income and no family? What did you do with all that empty space where your daughter and grandchildren used to be? I didn't know yet. But I would figure it out. I put my phone down and looked around my apartment. At the decorations I had put up for a celebration that never happened. At the presents I had wrapped for grandchildren I would never see again. At the life I had built around being a mother and a grandmother. That life was over. Now I needed to build a new one. I stood up and walked to the presents on my table. I picked up the journal set I had bought for Emma and the science kit I had bought for Lucas. I had spent money I didn't have on these gifts, money I would need for rent and groceries. I couldn't afford to keep them as reminders of what I had lost. I found the receipts in my junk drawer. Both stores had generous return policies. I could get my money back. I could take that money and use it for something I actually needed. Maybe I could finally replace my worn-out winter coat. Maybe I could buy some decent groceries instead of living on microwave dinners and day-old bread. I carefully removed the wrapping paper, folding it to save for another time. Force of habit. I had always saved wrapping paper because you never knew when you'd need it again. Except now I did know. I'd never need it again. There was no one left to wrap presents for. I put the gifts in a shopping bag along with their receipts. Tomorrow, I would return them. Tomorrow, I would take the first step toward building a life that didn't revolve around people who didn't want me. But tonight, I was going to sit in my apartment with my dollar store decorations and my cheap wine and my newfound freedom. And I was going to figure out who Margaret Sullivan was when she wasn't somebody's mother or somebody's burden. It was Christmas week, and I was alone, and for the first time in 3 days, that felt like it might be okay. Linda arrived at my apartment the next afternoon with 2 suitcases, and a determination I hadn't seen in years. She took one look at me standing in the doorway, and pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "You look terrible," she said when she finally let go. "I feel terrible," I admitted. She walked past me into the apartment, set down her suitcases, and immediately started taking down my Christmas decorations. "What are you doing?" I asked. "These need to go. You don't need reminders of what didn't happen. Help me pack them up." We spent the next hour dismantling Christmas. The garland came down from the kitchen window. The small ceramic nativity scene I'd had since Jessica was a baby went into a box. The wreath on the door got stuffed into a garbage bag. Linda worked with efficient fury, and I followed her lead, grateful to have something physical to do with my hands. When we finished, My apartment looked bare and sad, but at least it didn't look like I was still waiting for a celebration that would never come. Now, Linda said, sitting down on my couch and patting the cushion next to her. Tell me everything. I mean everything. Don't leave anything out. So I did. I told her about the phone call from Jessica, about Christmas Day alone, about the Facebook posts, about the private message that had cut me deeper than anything Jessica had ever said before. Linda's face grew darker with each detail. That spoiled little witch, she said when I finished. After everything you gave up for her. After raising her alone when Mark walked out. After working yourself half to death. So she could have dance lessons and summer camps and college without debt. This is how she treats you? I think she sees all of that as my choice, I said quietly. She thinks I'm holding it over her head. Making her feel guilty. Good. She should feel guilty. But maybe she's right, Linda. Maybe I do talk about my sacrifices too much. Maybe I am too needy. Linda grabbed my hand and squeezed it hard. Don't you dare. Don't you dare let her convince you that wanting basic respect and inclusion makes you needy. Every parent wants their children to appreciate what they did for them. That's normal. That's human. Jessica is just trying to justify treating you like garbage by making it your fault. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Linda said something that surprised me. You know what? Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. How could this possibly be a blessing? Because now you know the truth. You know exactly who Jessica is and what she thinks of you. You're not wasting any more time trying to please someone who will never be pleased. You're not sacrificing for someone who doesn't value sacrifice. You're free to live your life for yourself for the first time in 34 years. I don't know how to live for myself, I said. And hearing the words out loud made me realize how pathetic they sounded. Then you're going to learn. Starting now. Linda stayed with me for 4 days. During that time, she helped me return the Christmas presents and used the money to buy a new winter coat at a thrift store. She took me to lunch at places I would never have spent money on by myself. She forced me to leave my apartment every day, even when all I wanted to do was hide under my covers and cry. On the 3rd day, we met Helen at a coffee shop downtown. Helen was in her late 50s. With gray hair she wore in a practical bob and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. She hugged me like we were old friends even though we'd only worked together briefly 15 years ago. Maggie, I'm so glad you reached out. I've been thinking about you constantly since I saw your posts. We sat down with our coffee, and Helen told me about the community center where she volunteered. It was called Riverside Community Center, and it served seniors in the downtown Portland area. They offered lunch programs, activity classes, support groups, and social events. The lunch program is my favorite, Helen said. We serve about 40 people every Thursday. Some of them are homeless. Some live alone in tiny apartments. Some have families who never visit. They come for the food, but they stay for the community. For a lot of them, Thursday lunch is the only social interaction they get all week. That sounds wonderful, I said, though I wasn't sure why she was telling me all this. We're always looking for volunteers, Helen continued. We need people to help prepare and serve food, but we also need people to just sit and talk with our guests, to listen to their stories, to make them feel seen and valued. I think you'd be really good at that. Me. Why me? Because you know what it feels like to be invisible. You know what it's like when the people who are supposed to love you make you feel like a burden. You have empathy for people who are struggling because you're struggling too. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm not sure I have anything to offer right now. I'm kind of a mess. Helen reached across the table and squeezed my hand. The people who have been broken are often the best at helping others heal. Just think about it. After Helen left, Linda turned to me with a satisfied smile. That's it. That's what you're going to do. What? You're going to volunteer at that community center. You're going to meet new people and build a new community and stop waiting for Jessica to give your life meaning. I don't know, Linda. I'm not even sure I'm in the right headspace for helping other people. That's exactly when you should help other people. When you're drowning in your own pain. Sometimes the best thing you can do is reach out to someone else who's drowning. It reminds you that you're not alone. I thought about what Helen had said. About people who came to Thursday lunch because it was their only social interaction all week. About people who felt invisible and undervalued. About people like me. Maybe Linda was right. Maybe I needed this as much as they did. Okay, I said. I'll try it. The morning Linda left to go back to Seattle, she made me promise 3 things. 1, that I would start volunteering at Riverside. 2, that I would not respond to any attempts by Jessica to contact me unless she gave a genuine apology. 3, that I would stop checking Jessica's Facebook page. That last one is going to be the hardest, I admitted. I know, but you need to stop torturing yourself. Whatever she's posting, whatever she's saying, it doesn't matter anymore. She's not your family. Not really. After Linda drove away, my apartment felt emptier than ever. But it was a different kind of empty than it had been on Christmas Day. This emptiness felt less like loss and more like possibility. Like a blank canvas waiting to be filled with something new. I kept my promise to Linda. The next Thursday, I showed up at Riverside Community Center at 10 in the morning. The building was old but well-maintained, with a large common room that had been set up with round tables and folding chairs. The kitchen was industrial and slightly chaotic, with 3 women buzzing around preparing food. Helen spotted me and rushed over with a huge smile. Maggie, you came. I wasn't sure you would. I promised I would, so here I am. She introduced me to the other volunteers. There was Grace, a retired teacher in her 70s who had been volunteering at Riverside for 5 years. There was Keisha, a woman in her 40s who worked nights as a nurse and volunteered on her days off. And there was Tom, a quiet man in his 60s who had lost his wife 2 years ago and started volunteering to fill the empty hours. Everyone was kind and welcoming, but not in a pitying way. They treated me like I belonged there, like I had something valuable to offer. It felt foreign and wonderful at the same time. Helen put me in charge of greeting people as they arrived and directing them to tables. Just smile, she said. Make eye contact. Let them know they matter. That's all you have to do. The guests started arriving at 11. Some came in slowly, using walkers or canes. Some shuffled in with plastic bags containing all their worldly possessions. Some walked in with their heads down, not making eye contact with anyone. I stood by the door and greeted each person as they entered. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. The food smells amazing today, doesn't it? Small words. But I watched as people's faces changed when they heard them. Watched as shoulders relaxed and eyes brightened just a little. One woman, who introduced herself as Dorothy, stopped to chat with me for a few minutes. She was probably in her 80s, dressed in clothes that had seen better days but were clean and carefully maintained. I haven't seen you here before, she said. It's my first day volunteering. Well, welcome to the club. This place saved my life, you know. After my husband died and my daughter moved to Florida, I thought I'd just fade away in my apartment. Nobody to talk to, nowhere to go. Then I found this place. Now I have something to look forward to every week. I'm glad you found it, I said, my throat tight. Me too, honey. Me too. After everyone had been served their lunch, I sat down at a table with Dorothy and 3 other women. They talked about their week, about doctor's appointments and trouble with their landlords and a television show they all watched religiously. They asked me questions about myself, and I found myself sharing more than I intended. My daughter and I aren't speaking right now, I said. I spent Christmas alone this year. The women nodded knowingly. No judgment, no platitudes. Just understanding. My son hasn't called me in 6 months, one woman said. I don't even know if he knows where I live anymore. My daughter thinks I'm too old to make my own decisions, another woman added. She wants to put me in a home, even though I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Family is supposed to love you, Dorothy said. But sometimes they just don't know how. And sometimes they're too busy with their own lives to make room for you and theirs. It hurts like hell, but you learn to survive it. We sat there, 5 women who had been pushed to the margins by families who didn't have time for them. And somehow it felt less lonely than spending Christmas with people who resented my presence. When the lunch ended and the guests started filing out, Dorothy squeezed my hand. Come back next week, honey. We need people like you here. People like me? What kind of people is that? People who understand. I volunteered at Riverside every Thursday after that. Slowly, the community center became the highlight of my week. I learned the regulars' names and their stories. I listened to a man named Frank talk about his time in Vietnam. I helped a woman named Maria practice her English. I played cards with a group of men who had been coming to Thursday lunch for years. And gradually, I stopped thinking about Jessica quite so much. I stopped checking her Facebook page to see what she was posting. I stopped imagining conversations where she apologized and we reconciled. I stopped waiting for her to realize what she'd lost and come back to me. 2 months after Christmas, I got a call from the reporter, Amanda Chin. Her article had been published in the Portland Tribune, and she wanted me to know it was getting a lot of attention. I pulled it up online and read it with my heart pounding. The article was titled "When Family Excludes You: The Hidden Epidemic of Holiday Estrangement." It told my story, but Amanda had also interviewed 3 other people who had been excluded by their families during the holidays. There was a man whose siblings stopped inviting him to Thanksgiving after he came out as gay. There was a woman whose children excluded her after she divorced their father. There was another woman whose son's wife had gradually pushed her out of their lives until she wasn't welcome at any family gatherings. The article also featured quotes from therapists and social workers about why family estrangement was becoming more common and how devastating it could be for the excluded party. One therapist said something that struck me deeply. When a family member is excluded, especially a parent, it's not just about missing one holiday. It's about the message that exclusion sends. You don't matter. We don't want you. You're not worth making room for. That message can be more damaging than almost any other form of rejection. The article ended with a paragraph about me that made my eyes water. Margaret Sullivan has found a new community at Riverside Community Center, where she volunteers every week. When asked what advice she would give to others dealing with family exclusion, she said this: "You can't force people to value you. But you can find people who do. You can build a new family from the people who see you, who appreciate you, who make room for you at their table. It's not the same as having your biological family, but sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's real." I didn't remember saying those exact words to Amanda, but reading them, I realized they were true. Riverside had become my family. The people I met there every Thursday mattered to me, and I mattered to them. Not because we were related by blood, but because we had chosen each other. The article was shared thousands of times online. I got messages from people all over the country who had experienced similar exclusion. Some thanked me for speaking up. Some shared their own stories. Some asked for advice about how to cope with estrangement. I responded to as many as I could, offering what little wisdom I had gained. Don't wait for them to change. Build a life that doesn't require their approval. Find people who value you. Let yourself grieve what you lost, but don't let that grief define you. One message I received was from someone I didn't expect. It was from Emma, my 12-year-old granddaughter. She had apparently found the article and tracked down my email address through the reporter. "Dear Grandma Maggie, I read the article about you in the newspaper. Mom doesn't know I'm writing to you. She says we're not allowed to talk to you anymore because you hurt our family. But I don't understand what you did that was so bad. All I know is that I miss you. I miss our Saturday mornings when you would make pancakes and let me tell you about school. I miss how you always listened to me and made me feel important. Mom says you're toxic and that you tried to ruin Christmas on purpose. But that doesn't sound like the grandma I know. I wish I could see you. I wish I could understand what really happened. But I'm only 12 and nobody tells me anything real. They just say it's complicated and I wouldn't understand. But I think I would understand if someone would just tell me the truth. I love you, Grandma. I hope you're okay. Emma." I read that email 5 times, crying harder each time. My sweet Emma, caught in the middle of something she hadn't created and didn't understand. I wanted so badly to write back, to explain everything, to maintain whatever connection I could with her. But I knew that if I did, Jessica would find out and Emma would get in trouble. She might lose her phone or her computer. She might be punished for reaching out to me. So instead, I wrote a careful response. "Dear Emma, thank you for your beautiful email. It means more to me than you know. I love you so much, and I miss you terribly. You're right that the situation between me and your mom is complicated. Someday, when you're older, I hope we can talk about it and you can understand all the pieces. But for now, what's most important is that you know this. You did nothing wrong. This isn't about you. And my love for you hasn't changed at all. I don't want you to get in trouble for emailing me, so I think it's best if we don't communicate right now. But please know that I think about you every day. I'm proud of the young woman you're becoming. And I hope that someday, when you're old enough to make your own choices about relationships, we can reconnect. Until then, take care of yourself. Study hard. Be kind to others. And remember that you are loved more than you know. Always, Grandma Maggie. I sent the email, and then allowed myself to cry for what I had lost. Not just Jessica, but Emma and Lucas too. The grandchildren I had loved from the moment they were born. The grandchildren I wouldn't get to watch grow up. But after I finished crying, I got up and made myself dinner. I called Linda and told her about the email. I confirmed my volunteer shift for the next Thursday. I kept living, because that was all I could do. Spring came, and with it came an unexpected development. Riverside Community Center received a large donation from an anonymous benefactor. The donation was enough to expand their programs significantly, and the board asked Helen and me to help plan the expansion. I threw myself into the work. We developed a daily meal program instead of just weekly. We added exercise classes and art workshops. We created a support group specifically for seniors dealing with family estrangement. That group became one of our most popular programs. On the first night of the estrangement support group, 15 people showed up. We sat in a circle and introduced ourselves, and one by one, people shared their stories. Stories of children who stopped calling, of siblings who cut them off, of spouses who left them after decades of marriage, of families who decided they were too difficult, too needy, too much. When it was my turn, I shared my story about Christmas and Jessica, and the Facebook posts that had changed everything. I talked about the pain and the anger and the grief. But I also talked about Riverside, about building a new community, about learning to define family in a different way. We're all here because we know what it feels like to be excluded by the people who were supposed to love us unconditionally, I said. We know what it's like to be told we're too much or not enough. We know what it's like to have the door slammed in our faces by our own family members. But being here together, that means something. It means we're not alone. It means we can create family from choice instead of obligation. And sometimes that's more powerful than biology ever was. The group met every week. Slowly, the people in it became my closest friends. We celebrated birthdays together. We checked on each other when someone was sick. We showed up for each other in ways our biological families never had. 1 year after that terrible Christmas, I spent the holiday at Riverside. We had organized a Christmas dinner for anyone in the community who would otherwise be alone. 70 people showed up. We served ham and turkey and all the traditional sides. We sang carols and played games and exchanged small gifts. I looked around the room at all these people who had been rejected or forgotten or pushed aside by their families, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like I belonged. I felt like I mattered. I felt like I was home. Dorothy, who had become one of my closest friends, raised her glass of apple cider and proposed a toast. To the family we choose, she said. To the people who show up for us. To new traditions and second chances. We all raised our glasses and clinked them together, and I felt tears rolling down my cheeks. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude. Gratitude for surviving the worst year of my life. Gratitude for finding people who valued me. Gratitude for learning that I could be happy even without the family I thought I needed. I never heard from Jessica again. I saw on Facebook, before I finally deleted my account, that she had another baby, a boy they named Christopher. I mourned that I would never know him, never hold him, never be his grandmother. But I didn't reach out. I didn't congratulate her. I let her live her life without me, just as she had made clear she wanted to do. Emma wrote to me twice more over the years. Once when she turned 16, and once when she graduated from high school. Both times, she said she missed me and hoped we could reconnect someday. Both times, I wrote back with love and encouragement but didn't push for more. I figured that when she was ready, when she was old enough to make her own choices, she would find me if she wanted to. On my 65th birthday, Riverside threw me a party. Not a big elaborate thing. Just cake and coffee and a circle of friends who wanted to celebrate that I existed. They gave me a card that everyone had signed, filled with messages about how much I meant to them, and how glad they were that I was part of their community. This is the best birthday I've had in years, I told them, and I meant it. Later that evening, sitting alone in my apartment, I thought about where I had been 3 years ago. Sitting alone on Christmas Day with a microwave dinner, feeling worthless and invisible and completely alone. If someone had told me then that I would end up here, surrounded by a community that valued me, doing work that mattered, living a life that felt full and purposeful, I wouldn't have believed them. But here I was. I had survived the worst thing I thought could happen. I had lost my daughter and my grandchildren and the family I had spent 34 years building. And I had discovered that I could build something new, something different, something that was actually better in many ways than what I had lost. I wasn't the same woman who had made that Facebook post on Christmas Day. That woman had been desperate for validation from people who would never give it to her. That woman had measured her worth by how much her family needed her. That woman had been willing to accept scraps and call them love. This woman, the one I had become, knew her own value. This woman had built a life that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. This woman had learned that family wasn't just about blood and obligation. It was about showing up, about valuing each other, about making room at the table for everyone who needed a place. I thought about Jessica sometimes, wondered if she ever regretted what she had done, wondered if she missed me at all, or if she was relieved to have me out of her life. I would never know, and I had made peace with that. What I did know was this. I had been excluded from one family, but I had been embraced by another. I had been told I was too needy, too demanding, too much. And I had found people who said I was exactly enough. That Christmas when I sat alone eating a microwave dinner, I thought my life was over. I thought I had lost everything that mattered. But what I had actually lost was a relationship that was slowly destroying me. What I had actually lost was the burden of trying to earn love from people who didn't know how to give it. And what I had gained was so much more. I had gained my self-respect. I had gained a community of people who genuinely cared about me. I had gained the knowledge that I could survive the worst and come out stronger on the other side. I wouldn't choose to go through it again. The pain of that Christmas and the months that followed was real and deep and devastating. But I also wouldn't undo it. Because that pain had led me here, to this life, to these people, to this version of myself that I actually liked. So when people ask me if I regret posting on Facebook that Christmas Day, if I regret exposing the truth and burning the bridge with my daughter, I tell them the truth. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my daughter made choices that hurt me so deeply. I regret that my grandchildren are growing up without me. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret refusing to protect people who wouldn't protect me. I don't regret choosing my own dignity over their comfort. Because that choice, painful as it was, set me free. And freedom, I've learned, is worth almost any price. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.